I think that's a positive thing. They are actually being forced to explain their value and why that is the fee. And it is a fee that they should be paid because we are delivering a valuable service, just like any other person that gets paid. Dentists, doctors, lawyers. The biggest misconception I think that is amongst consumers right now, because we hear it all the time, are buyers that think they can go directly to a listing agent and save money. You are absolutely doing a disservice to yourself when you do that, because you're actually going to end up losing money.
The loudest changes in real estate aren't always the real ones. Since the lawsuits, commission discussions are filled with new forms and nervous energy, but the big question remains: did anything actually change about how we get paid? In this episode, we interview Sandee Burnham, who breaks down how new rules meet real life. She separates what changed on paper from what changed in practice. Listen in for the language and confidence you need to talk compensation without flinching, so you can stop undercharging and start getting paid what you're worth. This is Sandee Burnham. Hello and welcome back to the AC Pro Talk podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tony Stevens, along with my colleagues, Mr. Mark Hall and Mrs. Natasha Ruskrantz. Today, our special guest is another one of our colleagues, Chief Broker Strategist and Managing Broker of our West Cobb office, Ms. Sandee Burnham. Hello and welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Thanks for being here today.
Do you need notes? No. Okay. All right. Just check it. Just text. We don't have notes. She and I don't have notes.
Today's podcast is all about agent compensation, formerly commission, and how, if at all, that has changed since the historic 2024 National Association of Realtors settlement. But before we get into that discussion, I think it's best that we inform our audience who may not know what happened and how we got here. So in 2019, there was a class action lawsuit brought against National Association of Realtors, some MLSs and brokerages, that they alleged that they were price fixing compensation or commission and that it was unfair to consumers, to home buyers and sellers. And so they reached a settlement in the spring of 2024. It was reached for $418 million. And the litigation, really dove into the cooperative compensation piece of that. And so some of the biggest changes that happened for agents in today's marketplace, and since those new rules went into effect in 2024, was that agents now have to talk to their clients about compensation, who they're charging, why they're charging, what they're charging, how it could be shared, if it is shared. And then the other biggest change is there is no longer a compensation or commission field in any of the multiple listing services. So with that background, we can go ahead and get started with our discussion. So Sandee, my first question for you is, how long have you been managing broker at our West Cobb location?
11 years this year.
Fantastic.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Goes by fast.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that flew by.
And how many agents do you have out of that location?
About 490.
Wow. And the numbers that we ran, or actually our CIO, Mr. Barry Arnold, ran, is that your office closed over 2,400 transactions, totaling over $1 billion in sales volume last year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We have some fabulous agents, and they do a lot of business. They keep us hopping.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Well, that is what makes you a perfect guest for today's episode, to talk about compensation and if it has all changed since the National Association of Realtors settlement. So let's begin. Has it changed?
It has, and I think, honestly, well, my agents are going to probably shoot me when they see this, but I honestly think the compensation portion of it did change in mostly a positive way, because now it is forcing them to have the conversation with the clients rather than just filling in the numbers, going over everything else, looking at the house or talking to that buyer and showing the houses, and then just kind of sliding that in. now they're actually having to have conversations about it and explaining it to them. So I think that's a positive thing. They are actually being forced to explain their value and why that is the fee. And it is a fee that they should be paid because we are delivering a valuable service, just like any other person that gets paid. Dentists, doctors, lawyers, everybody gets paid for their services that they render. There's no difference for us. And that's the one time I get on a little bit of a soapbox. I understand why we're constantly having to defend ours a little bit, why we get that. But it's not the approach we should take. The approach we should take is that this is the value we're providing to you. And so I think it's helping agents have those conversations.
Excellent. And ultimately, buying a home is one of the biggest transactions that people make in their entire lives.
Absolutely.
So why would you not want to have representation and also be willing to compensate that professional for those services, walking you through that biggest transaction, typically the biggest transaction of somebody's life?
Absolutely.
Well, it's like being an airline pilot. You are maybe your whole career, maybe most of your transactions are easy, but that one time you have a difficult transaction, you earn every dollar you've ever been paid. And I mean, it's bad representation will really cost you.
Correct. And on the buyer side, and think about this, I know we've got one of our agents that will post, I've shown this buyer X number of homes over the last year and a half. That buyer's agent any agent does not get compensated typically until that transaction closes. So as a buyer's agent, you can show 40, 50, 60 homes over X number of months or even years and not be compensated for any of that work until that buyer ultimately finds a property that they close on.
Absolutely. If they valued it at the per hour rate, I mean, it would be awful. I mean, honestly, if they actually looked at the number of hours the agents spend working with the clients, and then once they finally get that check at a closing table, hopefully they do, I mean, it's so minimal. It barely covers all of their time and gas and all of the things. Plus, when they get those checks, that's not all theirs anyway. Most people have that misperception as well. They just see the check. They don't think about the fact that no taxes came out of that. They have to pay a brokerage split in most cases.
Right.
There are other factors that come out of that. The MLS is charge fees. So, there is a lot that goes into that.
How do you find with agents, are they taking this change of needing to communicate about what the commission compensation is? Are they doing well at it?
So there are two types of agents I see most, and the ones that are doing it and doing it well are the ones who are truly explaining their value, what they are providing, what services they do, where their expertise is. They're assisting them with the negotiating. They're assisting them when issues through appraisal, inspections. They're working with vendors, getting things lined up. They're talking to lenders, whichever side they're on, because even if you're the listing agent, you're communicating with that lender to make sure things are moving forward for that buyer because you're trying to protect your seller. There is a lot that goes into it. And again, like Tony said, it's your biggest investment in most cases. You have an accountant in most cases. People have CPAs because they know money is important. Why would you not want representation to help you through this kind of a transaction? So the agents who explain that and do it well are not struggling. As a matter of fact, to most of them, once they got past the, oh my goodness, this is a change, they sort of settled in and realized, oh, it's really not bad at all. We're fine. And they're not seeing a difference in what they're getting. The only ones who are struggling are the ones who still have their mind around the fact that they have to defend what they're asking to be paid, what their compensation will be. And they're going about it in more of a defensive manner, saying, well, but I'll try to get, and they're not really focusing on what they're delivering because it is deserved. So they're the ones that are struggling just a bit. But I know every broker here is trying to navigate with them the best ways of having those conversations.
I get that. And that's the challenge, I believe, with this change. But like you said, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to explain why the compensation is set up the way it is. You might all remember advertisements where it said, "Oh, use me as buyer's agent and you don't pay me anything. The seller pays it." Those days are gone. And it was always negotiable. That's the other thing. Correct. And that was, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions about these lawsuits that have some of us a little frustrated about it. Sure. Is that it wasn't always the seller's responsibility. It was always negotiable.
Plus, how is it really ultimately the seller's responsibility if it's built into the price of the property? Right. So if the seller wants $500 and the buyer pays $500, didn't the buyer just participate in what the compensation was?
Didn't they hand the money over?
I would think so. Yeah. So I mean, it's Alex Bonds, our managing broker at our Cartersville office, probably said it better than anybody else. He said last year at one point, he said, y'all remember about a year or so ago when we had all the talk about compensation and nobody thought that they would be able to come out of this or any of that stuff? And he said, here we are now a year later, and we barely talk about it anymore. And all of that has to do with how consumers, because we better explained it, et cetera. But then again, we were talking about a very small, at least here in Georgia, small group of people. How can you get sued, in our case, by people we didn't even represent? Right. None of us at this table got calls from consumers saying, oh my God, I can't believe we're paying this, and how come we didn't know, and all this. We didn't get that. Yeah. Because it really didn't exist. No,
and like you
attorneys.
Said, Attorneys.
Yeah, they got a lot of money.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, let's talk about what they got paid.
But just like you said, I mean, and that's what, once the agents truly wrap their head around it and realize, and explaining it to the seller when they're filling out those listing agreements, it has always been the same way. It's always been built into the price. Mm-hmm. The buyer has always been the one ultimately paying all of it, including the listing side, because all of the compensation has always been figured into that list price, because every seller looks at what they want to make the bottom line when they list a property. Yeah. And as long as it's comparable and it's within reason, the agent's like, you're absolutely right, this is where we can go. And that is built in. The buyer is the only one who ever brings funds to the closing.
So if you think about the old HUD ones, so if they'd had, instead of 2 columns, if they'd had 3 columns, and they had in the center the compensation, and then they took a certain percentage of that, whether it was 50-50 or not, and moved it over to each side, that would have solved everything. Right. Because then it would have shown everything. And are there people that gain the system that didn't tell the full story to sellers? Are there instances where that happened? But again, if you're old enough and mature enough, whatever that means, old enough and mature enough, to own a property, and then you get ready to dispose of property, the fact that you didn't read what you got from the agent, how is, again, I think the lawsuit did something that the unintended consequence was that you can sign a contract today, and then 2 years from now or 3 years from now, you don't like what the terms were, you can file suit.
Agreed.
So it's almost as if it rendered contracts null and void, right? Mm-hmm. Useless, right?
And that was one of the things that we thought here in Georgia. Our contract forms are so strong, mm-hmm. thanks to the Georgia Association of Realtors and Forms Committee, that when the lawsuit was first came about, we thought, boy, our contracts are going to keep us out of the fray. And we know that did not necessarily happen.
Yeah.
For some firms in the
I won't raise that specter. Yeah. We don't have enough time in the podcast to talk about that. That's a whole different podcast. Yep. Yeah, I can go down that road for sure.
Sorry. So thinking about back to the agents, are some making more money now, or are they renegotiating to a lesser amount?
Actually, and I do have a funny story about that. I have one agent, and she came, and it only came to my attention because she had an issue, and so she came in, and I'm going through all of her paperwork, and I see this special stipulation that she has written in her buyer brokerage agreement And I kind of did a double take, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Did they, and they agreed to this? Because she had a step written that they were going to pay her in addition to anything that the seller may have contributed or the seller's broker. And she said, oh yeah, I put that in every one of my contracts now. She goes, when I'm explaining my value, she goes, I'm getting more now than I think. So
amazing.
Since the lawsuit, she has truly embraced it, more so than probably any of my other agents. And she said, you know what? I'm definitely having these conversations now. And it brought a spotlight to me even on how much I actually do. And they're going to pay me if they want to work with me. That was exactly how she put it to me. And her clients are doing it quite happily. So yes, I do. Most of the agents, I can tell you, the bulk of the agents that I speak to are not having an issue whatsoever getting exactly what they want to receive, and what they feel their value is. They will occasionally, if it's a certain circumstance with a client that they're like, you know what, I'm gonna reduce this a little, or I'm gonna contribute a little to this, you know, if it's somebody they're close to, or if it's, you know, somebody that they're helping, because that's the type of agents we work with, which I love, who are always willing to help when the client needs something. And the fact that we as a brokerage give them the opportunity to do that and the permission to do that. I love that we do that, because that's actually, when I'm in a recruiting appointment, that is something I get asked a lot, is do I have wiggle room? If I want to help one of my clients, do I have the ability to do that? And I love that here they do, if they choose to.
They can run their business the way they want to run
That's
it.
right. Yes. In business by themselves, but for themselves, but not by themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Because then, I mean, honestly, that's just going to feed into more business for them, which is more business for us. Because when they do those things, they're going to get so many referrals. I had one agent the end of last year who completely waived her compensation completely.
Wow.
She even wrote a check for the FMLS fee, because it was a client who was desperate and was in a terrible situation, and she contributed everything that she was getting to help them. And she asked me, because it was all of it. And I said, the only thing we can't waive is, you know, and she said, I've got that. And I was like, oh, so sweet. Well, she's already gotten 2 referrals from that, because of course they're going to tell everybody about what, you know, so those kind of things, I think.
I love that. I love those stories.
But again, it's their choice.
Agreed. Yeah.
Comes back to when we went on the road at the unreasonable hospitality.
Oh, yeah.
When we took our road show around the SEP's offices, and we talked about that. And interestingly enough, that book was brought up in the podcast that I listened to just yesterday morning. I don't know if you heard the latest episode of that.
Not yet.
But they mentioned his favorite book was The Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah, because if you make yourself memorable and stuff, I mean, who doesn't want to pay for representation?
Right.
I mean, nobody if all of you were sellers and we were sitting down here, I don't think any one of you 3 would think, I bet I don't have to pay him anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, people, that's just not the way it works. And they want to know what the numbers are, so they want to have the conversations, and we were reluctant as an industry to have those conversations.
And part of what got us into that problem, or got our industry into that problem, was there were brokerages that, and it came out in the trial, that said they had in their policy and procedures manual, you must charge X. You cannot waver on that. And again, that's one of the great things about us being an independent and allowing our agents to run their business as they see fit. They can go ahead and do so, as long as they're within the rules and regulations of license law and the Georgia Real Estate Commission.
That's right.
I love the disclaimer.
Yeah. Got to have that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds to me like confidence is a big thing. An agent who has confidence in what their value is, they're able to give that to whether it's the seller, whether it's their buyers who are paying it, they're able to convey that to them. What is your recommendation for an agent who doesn't have that confidence?
Then we need to sit down and talk about with your broker. Absolutely sit down and talk about that, because you should, because you are delivering a good service. You're delivering value.
So you should have confidence when you're talking about it. This is what you do for a living. So you need to feel confident. If you don't have confidence in yourself, how in the world is that client going to have confidence in you?
Agreed.
So delivering that confidently is important on so many levels because you're going to be negotiating on their behalf. So when you're negotiating your own compensation, if you can't do that effectively, how are they going to have the faith that you're going to be able to navigate and negotiate on their behalf? So I think you have to get stronger at those conversations. And a lot of times it's not that they just don't know how to put it into words.
Yeah.
So talking to their broker, getting out there and reminding them of the things that they do that bring the value, all of the things they're going to be helping them with. Like I said earlier, the appraisal issues, which come up all of the time, and how to get through that, and inspection issues, knowing how to ask for certain things, what to ask for. And the biggest misconception I think that is amongst consumers right now, because we hear it all the time, are buyers that think they can go directly to a listing agent and save money.
Mm-hmm.
You are absolutely doing a disservice to yourself when you do that, because you're actually going to end up losing money.
Of course.
Because that listing agent is working for the seller. They're not looking out for that buyer's best interest on any level. So they're not going to write that special stip to protect the buyer. They're going to write it to protect the seller. And explaining that those are the things, the nuances of every aspect of the contract, including the very beginning and writing the offer and what to offer. That listing agent is going to tell you, oh yeah, it's priced right. You need to come in at full price.
Of course they are.
But a buyer's agent is going to run comps. They're going to be able to say, well, actually, this is a little high. I think we need to, and they're going to help you with that. So letting agents know, remember what you do. Here's your value. You need to learn it so that you can explain it correctly and confidently to your prospective.
Yeah, and I think for me, that's always been the first people they have to learn to talk to them about is themselves, because they have to look in the mirror and they have to figure out, how much do I want to be paid on the transaction? And then they take that information and they then take it wherever they want to go and then figure out how to talk to the consumer, because the better the conversations, the more acceptance there is for everybody, on the front end. Last thing you want to do is get to the end of the transaction and then them look at what the fee was for the services rendered, and then have a problem with how much that number is.
Okay.
And unfortunately, for a long time, we let that happen, And I don't mean Atlanta communities, I mean industry.
Industry, absolutely.
Well, think about it. If you're in the unfortunate situation where you have to go to court for one thing or another, are you going to go into court unrepresented? Especially if it's...
I'm not.
Right. Exactly.
But that lawyer is typically going to go over with you before you sign the paperwork what they're going to do for you, what their charges are for their services. So it's really no different than what we as realtors.
Well, I mean, think about going to a doctor. So this is interesting because I've seen a subtle shift about this. So doctors' offices typically, just because I have to go to the doctor, because I'm old. When you go to the doctor, doctors make you pay your copay or whatever up front.
That's right.
Now, if we contrast that with dentists wait until after you come out of the treatment and then tell you what it cost. Now, the difference is if the dentist told you before the treatment, you'd say, that's okay. I'm good. Yeah. Let me go get some oral gel or whatever, fix that thing up. But I mean, it really is just a subtle way of looking at how compensation in any number of industries is paid and talking about it.
Yeah.
You're not going to, I don't think very many people are going to go to work and just hope they get paid whatever they happen to say. Oh, well, here, $5. $5? That's all you're paying me? Yeah, that's all. It's just not going to happen.
Well, and then there's discount brokerages. And there are these sellers and buyers who don't want to pay what your value is. And what is your recommendation for agents that encounter that?
Well, they usually chuckle when I'm teaching my classes and I say this, but you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And if they're not willing to respect what you do and what you're going to be doing for them, because you're not doing this for your behalf, you are protecting their interests. And if they're not willing to respect that, I'm not going to work with them.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a client who's in a situation where, look, we have run the numbers, this is all we could possibly afford, then that's a different conversation.
Story. Absolutely.
But if it's somebody that says, I'm only willing to pay you one, that's it. That's all you're getting. I'm like, okay, well, I wish you well. And that's what I tell my agents. You need to respect what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want anybody else to respect what you do. So that's my conversation. If they run into somebody like that, again, it's situational.
It is okay to walk away and say, no, I'm not going to take on this deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can always say, let me know how it goes after you hire that person.
Exactly.
And then let me know, and I'm happy to help you second go round.
Exactly.
Yeah. When the seller overprices by $75,000, won't listen to you, and you're like, be the second agent. Yep.
Yeah, I'd rather be your second or third agent. You let me know when that happens, and I will get you the best I can get you for you.
Which is the original amount you had stated in the first invoice.
Well, and then, if you think about Ninja, one of the things that Ninja talks about is the fact that you know what your plan is, you know how you're going to approach sellers, and how you're going to do what you're going to do, and you lay your best plan out there. And if the seller makes a decision that they're not going to do that, you walk out of there okay, because you know that you did the best that you could do, offered the best thing, and did exactly what you would do for any number of people. They just happen not to decide to use you,
Yeah.
You got to be confident.
Absolutely.
I've got some information regarding the Consumer Federation of America. And the National Urban League put out a study that was released in April of this year, and we can link to this in the show notes for anybody that wants to see. Just a couple of things. The Consumer Federation of America and the National Urban League surveyed 223 housing counselors across 37 states in July and August of 2025. In addition, they conducted 9 in-depth interviews of housing counselors. And housing counselors in these states provide individual guidance to dozens of first-time home buyers to educate hundreds of consumers in home buyer classes each year. Their responses reveal that while some confusion remains about the new commission rules, these changes have not emerged as an insurmountable barrier to first-time home buyers. And furthermore, and I just used just a couple of pieces here, is their key finding number one: commissions have not significantly fallen since the settlement. Only 7% of counselors said that commissions have decreased compared to a year ago, with the majority of them saying that there was no substantial change. And so I take that to be that, like we coach our agents here at Atlantic Communities, that agents are having those conversations with their clients and again, displaying their value to that client, whether on the buyer side or the seller side.
Absolutely.
It's great news.
It is good
And
news.
that is truly what we see.
Yeah.
We're not seeing a difference, truly. The occasional one that is not, it's just what the agent was willing to do. So I love that it's everywhere, because that's certainly what I'm seeing amongst our agents here.
And unfortunately, this does not make the Consumer Federation of America happy to hear this information. They have stated that they think real estate professionals in the United States are paid more than they deserve and want us to be similar to Australia or New Zealand.
Move to Australia or New Zealand then.
Where the compensation is significantly lower than what we have here in the States.
Will they pay more for gas in those two places? Is that okay?
Great.
We pay less, right? So it's all relative. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous.
But again, we can link to this in the show notes for anybody that wants to see it.
Yeah, that was the attorney that was the law professor that said, yes, I remember her quite well. Please.
So, Sandee, I would say the biggest thing an agent can do right now is to get more confident in their sales presentation, to be able to learn how to talk about compensation easily, feel confident about it, be able to truly know their value. Sometimes these agents walk in and they really don't know what their value is. They need to be educated. They need to get help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's not a broker in the company who wouldn't be willing to sit with that agent and go through it and give them the language, help them. You may not have ever put it into words, but this is what you do.
Yes.
And help them understand it so that then they do have that confidence. But, I've even done that with some of ours, and they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it. That is what I do.
Yeah.
And then they are better at having those conversations. So please talk to the broker, get help, understand how to explain it so that you know what you're worth and what you're giving of your time and your effort and your expertise to that client.
Yeah.
We had one of our realtors in Atlanta Advantage who told us that they were using AI to set up those conversations. So they prompted AI to be a disgruntled potential seller who doesn't like real estate professionals, et cetera, and then they would interview them to be the listing agent for them.
Interesting.
And it was because they had no idea what was coming next from AI in terms of, we don't like real estate agents and why are we going to pay you what you want and all these other things. And it really made a big difference in how they learned how to do it and navigate it.
Script
Because
practice
when
on
you-
a whole new level. I
Right,
love it.
because you know how when people, anytime we have a class or a workshop where we're trying to do scenarios where they role play, and nobody ever wants to role play. Nobody.
Right.
Well, AI will role play with you.
Absolutely.
They will do it, and they love it. I can imagine.
That's a great exercise.
Yeah,
Build their confidence level.
yeah, absolutely. Who knows? Yeah, I got chat to buy a house. So use me as my listing agent. Yeah, how's that?
Well, Sandee, we have a special way that we kind of close things out each session that we do, each podcast. Mark, why don't you ask the question?
Oh my gosh! Am I ready?
You can do it.
Look at my notes. What recent book have you read that you would like to talk about? Is that right?
You did.
I
Nailed
did.
it.
Okay, good.
Actually, the most recent one that I actually reread was Multipliers by Liz Weissman. I don't know if any of you
I've not heard of it. Yeah.
So it's a really good one on helping with leadership and how to do it effectively so that you're not, her perspective is there are diminishing types of leaders and there are multiplier types of leaders. And the multiplier is the kind you clearly want to be because you attract people who are going to want to add value to your team. You learn how to set them up for success. You want to be the type of leader who encourages your team members to have an opinion and share it and give them the platform to do that and encourage them to come up with great ideas. Don't just give them answers. Help them navigate through figuring it out and grow from it. And, so it's just a really, I really like it. It's a really good
That
book.
sounds like a good one.
It's
Yeah.
really good.
Okay.
Multipliers by Liz Weissman. It came out in, I think, 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read that one twice now, and I read it again just recently. And so, that's probably the most recent one I read that I really do like.
That's good.
Excellent.
So one more question.
Oh, don't ask me the second question.
If you could have lunch, dinner, cocktails with anyone, current, historical, who would that be and why? And there is no wrong answer.
Oh, you will absolutely laugh, though, because this is one I was asked in college as well, because, people always ask this question.
Right.
And mine has never wavered, even since high school.
Wow.
Mine is Walt Disney.
Okay.
Not just because I love everything Disney, although I do. Everybody here knows I go on a trip twice a year.
Yep.
I have to go. But honestly, because of who he was and who he was as a leader, I found him from a very young age. I was enamored with him and his imagination and how he brought things to life that had never been. And he encouraged, it's probably why I'm drawn to that book. He encouraged everyone around him to innovate and come up with things that were so far-fetched and then make it happen. So I watched a documentary. Of course, I grew up in Florida. So I watched a documentary on him when I was probably 12, and I've been enamored since. So
Wonderful.
It's a great answer.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
like that.
I didn't think that. I should have known.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's one of the. Well, Sandee, thank you so much for joining us today and giving your expertise on all things compensation. We certainly appreciate your time and everything that you do. And thank you to my esteemed co-host as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Today. And audience, thank you for joining us. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Atlanta Communities Real Estate Brokerage. Content shared is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, tax, or real estate advice. Listeners should consult with their own licensed professionals before making business or real estate decisions. Atlanta Communities Real Estate Brokerage is an equal opportunity employer and supports the Fair Housing Act.